So yeah, as Teona said, I'm Irakli Beselidze, founder of Kelon AI, and Kelon AI is an appointment marketing assistant that helps to convert human-like conversations into appointments with machine speed, predictability, and scalability. And there have been very good and amazing speakers on this event, and they were specialized in machine learning and data science and everything. But I'm not that kind of person. I'm a marketer, so I've been working in marketing for since 1997, and I started my journey as in a traditional advertising agency, placing ads on TV and outdoors and radio and print media, all these classic. I've been working with some of the greatest brands like Pepsi, Chevrolet, uh, Bayer, Aspirin, and many of them. So, and I'm looking at artificial intelligence from the marketing and communication point of view. So, and in today's presentation, I will be focused on that part because there are other speakers who are speaking much better than me about artificial intelligence. So, okay, so let's start. Let's start with it. So, my question to you before I dive into the presentation is why humanity, why do we actually need artificial intelligence? What is the point? So why do we need artificial intelligence? And please type your answers in the chat box. And Teona, I will ask you to kind of, give me an idea what the audience is thinking about the artificial intelligence. Why do we need it? So yeah, so I will continue. So and um, because I'm working a very long time in marketing, I know that 21st century is a really challenging time for classic brands. Classic brands like, like Coca-Cola, like Marlboro. And the main problem is that they really struggle to connect with their customers in new age. And I very much like this example. So why did the blonde buy a horse? So this is a kind of great example of brands not being able to connect with their messaging, with their audience. So why did the blonde buy a horse? Because she saw the Marlboro ad. So the problem here is that that this is unclear what actually they are advertising. And I don't think that it's a kind of anecdote, right? But it's not her fault because in today's world, like attention span is only 7 seconds, and we can kind of have only 7 seconds to make a decision about what the message is about, right? So, and I don't really would blame the user or the consumer in not being able to understand. Rather, I would blame marketers and brand managers on not being able to deliver their values. So, what are the other problems that classic brands have? So, we see that the brand equity is decreasing. So, in 2012, Coca-Cola, for the first time in the history of when Interbrand started evaluating the value of the brands, they lost the leading position there, and they kind of started to struggle. And by 2012, Coca-Cola sales were dropping down for 8 consecutive years. So it was really a kind of hard time for Coca-Cola and other classic brands as well, while other big companies like modern companies were thriving. Their brand evaluation was rising year by year. So you can see that Amazon brand evaluation is about $200 billion, and it's increased by 60% if we compare to 2019. And what actually is the problem? So what happened to the brand? And you might think that this is because all these products are outdated, and Coca-Cola has been producing its beverage since like 19th century, and it's clearly outdated, and it cannot really be up, updated up to our new consumer demands. But also there are other problems as well, like environmental issues and health issues like sugar. And sugar is the major cause of obesity and also the teeth diseases. And in general, not only Coca-Cola, but other brands as well, they suffer from these changes. And their, as I said, their sales are like dropping down, were dropping down till 2012. And but is that actually connected? I mean, the problem, like outdated product and everything, connected to branding and brand evaluation, which we know is really about the messaging, about the message, about the connection between the consumers and the brands. And this happens through communication, right? So something in the communication is broken. So research has shown that the Coca-Cola core target audience perceived Coke as their parents' drink. And the problem was that they even didn't consider it the brand as a brand for someone like them, so that didn't even want to try it. And that was the kind of insight of the problem. And all these with $300 million of the marketing budget. So the problem was not the reach and kind of number of contacts between, but it was the problem with the message. So the real challenge for the Coca-Cola at that time was to change perception of Coke as an old-fashioned drink to a brand for someone like a teen, for someone like typical core target audience. So in 2013, Coca-Cola launched brand new campaign to address this challenge. And this was probably you have heard about Share a Coke strategy, Share a Coke campaign. And this was something that nobody has seen before in branding. So what they did, it was absolutely revolutionary. They even removed the brand name from their iconic bottle, and they put their consumer names, and they start movement in social media. At that time, it was kind of new thing, and they even enabled to join consumers into a conversation using traditional media like outdoors. So what they did is they provided the phone number, and their consumers were able to text their names, and those names were projected into LED billboard at Times Square. So, and let me just show. And you are also able to personalize the bottle, the iconic design of Coca-Cola bottle. And what they did, they personalized everything. So let's look at campaign results. So what was the result? Let me just put it over here. All right. So campaign results. Excuse me. Do you see my screen actually? Oh, yes. Yeah. So let's talk about the results. And results were phenomenal because sales increased by 11%. People were traveling to another states to buy bottles with their names and with their friends' names to bring them a gift. So it was absolutely unprecedented result, and sales increased by 11%. I will remind you that before this campaign, their sales were dropping down for 8 consecutive years. And then revenue increased 11%, and they increased the unit price by 2%, while competitors were discounting. What about the competitors? So competitors at the same time of period had the negative sales volume. So they have a problem. They were struggling to sell their product. So category itself was at the at the decline, while Coca-Cola was able to change the trends because they did the personalization campaign. So the main takeaway of Share Coke is that nobody is actually interested in slogans, taglines, and brand stories. So we want brands to talk about us. So that's what we are interested in. And using this approach, you can change everything, as we've seen in them. And the secret is, actually, it's not a secret, but this is a fundamental transition that's happening right now in branding. So it's that we are changing. It's like transition is from mass communication. Mass communication is when you have a one message and you're broadcasting that message to everyone, so that you kind of have this brand key message distributed to everyone. But that isn't working anymore. So what working now is a mass personalization, and this is already underway. So uh, why this happened? Because with digital and with the technology, consumers already expect brands to understand their specific needs and context. They want personal attention. They want to have conversations with brands. And I will give you some research figures as well later. So they want to feel the personal connection with the brand. And while they have a conversation with brands, they can do so. So the fact is that every day 1 billion messages every day are sent between brands and consumers on Facebook Messenger alone. So we are not talking about other conversational channels. We're talking about one channel. And this is an enormous amount of conversation. So and personalization in this case is a key, and it's a kind of personalization is a trait of premium brands, because if you take premium brands, they offer you personalized experience. Because for example, if you order a premium car, you cannot just buy a car. You have to order, you have to choose options, so it will be tailored to your needs. So this is a kind of a trait of a premium brand, and people expect these from every brand. So how do we do that? So how can brands maintain one-on-one conversations with millions of customers? So, and it's a very good question. And now, Teona, I'd like to ask you, do we have responses on the question that I asked at the beginning?
Yes, we have several answers. Let me read them out loud. The first one was to make our work easier, to our life easier also. The second was to minimize our manual work. And the last one was to automate and optimize mundane tasks. And also the last one was to know what's the next.
All right, that's great responses. Thank you. So as you already understand, my point is completely different, right? So the idea is that to do that, we need to create an automated system, because kind of maintaining billion conversations every day without spending a fortune on the labor, it's not possible. So you cannot have like personalized conversations at scale or without automated system. And that automated system, and I will less be talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, but we need something that will mimic human-like conversation to personalize consumers' experience. All right. So how do we do that? And um, first of all, we have to understand how human communication works. And the truth is that human communication is the most complex stuff in the world. So it's very complex. It's much more difficult than machine learning, coding, on any other thing, because it's not really. It's quite difficult to kind of create a system that provides with that experience. We cannot create artificial human that will be able to perform tasks at the level of the human. At the moment, we can't do it, and I'm not sure that it's possible and it's necessary actually. So and so, what are the four stages of communication? The first part is to hear the language, is to understand what other people are saying, and it can be um, all kind of different things. So, and I call it absorb data, and it can be written, spoken, or visual. And all the living creatures created by nature are good at it. So if you, for example, if you kind of turn on the camera on your iPhone and record, like try to record what's happening around you, it will have pretty decent quality of recording of sounds and visions and everything, visuals, everything is happening around you. But the iPhone will not be able to understand what's actually happening, right? Because this is an unstructured data that we have around us, and computers cannot actually consume the data, kind of, understand what's going on there. And for example, dogs are very good at it, right? And that's why we have assistant dogs that help blind people to navigate through the city, because dogs can uh, absorb unstructured data pretty well, understand what's going on, and help them avoid, anything, any problems there. So um, machines are really bad at it. So that's why we don't actually see self-driving cars everywhere, because you have to teach machine how to do it. And I will talk about this a bit later. So the first part is to actually get data, absorb data, to hear spoken language or read what has been written or see what's going on. The second part of the human communication intelligence is to interpret what's being said, or what's been seen, and depending on the on the context, depending on the shared knowledge, uh, different people will have different will interpret the exact same information differently. So this is the second part. For example, if you take this, can you tell me, is it rotating clockwise or counterclockwise, Teona?
Clockwise.
So some people, I see it's rotating counterclockwise. So they can interpret the same visual differently depending on their context. So the second part is to interpret. So what does it mean? And we people are really good at it. So this is happening on this is kind of, our mental infrastructure for the conversation. And while we are talking to each other, we are trying to understand what the other person is saying, interpreting it, depending on what we know about each other. So it is called um, recursive mind reading, but I will not go really deeper into this. So interpretation is the second stage. So the third stage is to actually predict what other person wants to hear, and then kind of say in a way, and this is the fourth stage of the communication, say something, respond in a way to move conversation forward. And it's very important to understand that every conversation is based on the shared goal. It should be based on the shared goal. Now we all have like different goals, but the conversation itself can be so close because it was based on the shared goal. I mean, 100,000 years ago, when we started to speak, by language, not by gestures. We were able to communicate so closely because people and have the shared goal, and helping each other, trying to understand each other was beneficial for both of communicators. So this is a shared goal is something that glues our communication. So, and we are saying in a way that we want to move the conversation forward, and this is the, I mean, basically that's the um, uh, intellectual and mental infrastructure that every human being has, but machines don't. So how do we try to recreate the same mental processes that we have in our brain using available technology? So that's the question that we've been trying to answer for 3 years. And you know, every kind of every system, every startup, every AI enthusiast, they have different approach to it. So our approach is to, like, you know, um, let me tell you a story. Do we have a time, Teona? So like,
Sure,
because
yes.
yeah, okay. So I will a little bit go further than 20 minutes of my presentation. So if we have a time, so the story which kind of illustrates my point is that uh, the Wright brothers were inventors of the plane. So they invented the plane, the actually the machine that could have fly in a controllable way. So before Wright brothers, all other inventors were trying to build artificial birds. And you know, it started with the Icarus legend, when Icarus was trying to fly as high as possible, and then because his wings were built in a way that the bird's wings, they could not sustain, and he died and he crashed. So, and Leonardo da Vinci, later in a medieval, also tried to build something like artificial birds, and other inventors like in 19th century were trying to build, but their um, all this approach failed because they couldn't understand, they were not able to understand underlying principles that birds are using naturally to fly. So they were just rebuilding the design, but not understanding aerodynamics and everything. So Wright brothers did it differently. So what they did, they started to learn aerodynamics. So they built kind of wind tunnel, and they started to, you know, they first of all, so yeah, and they built that tunnel, wind tunnel, and they tried to experiment with the design of the wing that was able to lift the object heavier than air into the air. And this was the first challenge they have with flying. The second one was to be able to control the plane during the flight. And it was, you know, they invented the system that was able to, you know, uh, uh, control the wings and degrees to be able to control the flight, so it won't crash there. And the third one was the motor. They added internal combustion engine to the to their machine, so that it was able to fly from point A to point B. So, and their plane didn't look like a bird at all. So it was kind of different thing, but it was able to perform much better than artificial birds built by previous inventors. So the same idea we put here. So what we want to do is to understand underlying psychology and principles that we humans use to maintain conversations and try to build. And they Wright brothers built their machine in 1903. So you can imagine the technology level at that time was very low. So, and kind of similar point is here that we are now. So how we can do recreate. So I hope that the point is clear. So what we are trying to do. So how can we recreate the same processes that I said before that happening in the human brain to uh, build a system that can perform human-like conversation. So the first step is to hear natural language, which is an unstructured data. So unstructured data, and usually this first part is what we call conversational AI, because AI is something that can work with unstructured data, right? So, and to teach computers, as I said, computers are really bad at understanding unstructured data, and to build that system and to make computer understand, we need a natural language processor, which is a kind of special type of um, application, and the human trainer. So how it works is that when you need to add training phrases to the system, and once you have kind of 20 or 30 training phrases, then the application natural language processor starts working, and it builds kind of mathematical model of the command that are that that are similar to the training phrases that you have. And when you have like a 21st phrase coming in with the same mathematical model, computer understands it as a particular command. But sometimes errors happen, so we need human to actually point to natural language processors that this intent or command was recognized incorrectly. And okay, so let's change and retrain the model to make it better. So the more training phrases you have and the better your AI trainer is, the more accurate is the result. So the better computer can hear the natural language. So this is the first part. So, and in general, that's it. So that's it. I mean, in terms of conversational AI, we cannot do anything. So we need no more artificial intelligence. So to rebuild the human communication system, it's just 20% of the whole system, 25, let's say. So the second part is interpretation, and for that you need to apply custom logic to the utterances. So for example, uh, a user is coming into your system and says, um, okay, I can't on Tuesday. May we book it on Wednesday? So depending on the data that we have about the user, so it might it can it might mean different things. For example, if we don't have active appointment with this user, and it means that it wants to book an appointment for Wednesday. But if we already have uh, the appointment, it means that he wants to reschedule. So there are different um, uh, tasks that have to be performed by a system depending on the data that we have about this user in our system. But we have to have the custom logic, and the custom logic is implemented by a developer. So the third phase is to predict the next step. And for that, we need to understand where the user is in his journey, because at the strategy level, we need to identify what the journey is, what the actual mission of the assistant is, and then understand where they are so that we know what is the next step. For example, our assistant, when someone asks for an appointment, our assistant like offers different days, like available spots to the user. So we know that if they are asking for an appointment, the next step will be to ask about the appointment. But rather than asking the appointment, we already proactively offer them free spots. So we know that if they ask for an appointment, the next step will be to choose the dates and time. So, and the fourth thing is to respond. So respond in a way that moves conversation forward. And this is uh, actually designed by conversational designer. And there is no, no actual AI involved in steps 2, 3, and 4, but we see that it really works. But again, right, we are not recreating uh, artificial humans. What we are doing is we are building um, actual conversational interface that can perform in a way that helps the user and business to uh, to move to the shared goal. In this case, we are talking about appointment marketing assistants, so their goal is an appointment. Yeah, and I'm a bit out of time, so by having this system, so we are at the beginning of the process, so technologies are not so good. I mean, AI is not that accurate in recognizing what humans say, but at some point, the brands will start using that system to uh, start building personal connections with consumers using conversations. And in those conversations, consumers will take the protagonist position. So they will be asking the brands, and the brands will have to understand their context, their emotional state, their problem, and then offer a solution and offer their brand value to them to make their life better. So yeah, and in my call to action for this presentation is, if you want to start using artificial intelligence for your life, in everyday life, so that you can understand better how it works, start using voice assistants. So it can be anything like Google Assistant, Siri, Alexa, Bixby, Microsoft Cortana, anything. But if you start using that, you will understand how conversational interfaces work and how it can provide value, and it can provide personalized experience to you, and then try to start finding interesting if you are use cases, if you are a developer, or if you are just a user, understand how they works, or if you are a businessman, how it may work in the future for your business. Okay, I'm Irakli and I'm done speaking. Thank you.